And for today's special report, can social media companies be held responsible for aiding terrorism? The Supreme Court heard arguments today on whether Twitter can be sued for allegedly aiding ISIS. What they decide will have broad implications for the future of the internet. The case, Twitter versus Taamneh, began when an ISIS gunman entered a club in Istanbul. He opened fire on the crowd and killing and injuring dozens of people. The family of one victim then brought the lawsuit, accusing Twitter of aiding and abetting ISIS. It says Twitter was aware that ISIS supporters were on its platform and that ISIS members benefited from using the platform. Lawyers for social media companies say they've worked hard to remove ISIS content. They claim their platforms didn't directly cause the nightclub shooting. If Twitter loses, it means social media companies could potentially be found responsible for some terrorist attacks. This could bring a wave of lawsuits that could transform the entire industry. During the Supreme Court arguments, the 9 justices questioned lawyers from both sides about their case. The lawyer representing the Taamneh family, Eric Snapper, says that unless someone walked up to Twitter and pointed to an ISIS post, Twitter wouldn't do anything. He also accused Twitter of recommending these problematic posts.
So why is the recommendation aiding and abetting?
Insofar as the recommendations were affirmatively calling the attention of users to ISIS materials, that would be extremely valuable to ISIS in recruiting more fighters, which was,
that
of
has
course,
nothing to do with the attack. So you say this particular attack, they didn't have to have any knowledge or awareness or assistance with respect to the particular attack.
That is precisely our position.
Meanwhile, the lawyer representing Twitter's Seth Waxman pointed out that the Taamneh family is not accusing Twitter of intentionally aiding ISIS terrorist activities. He also says, according to the definition of the law, Twitter did not aid and abet ISIS.
The plaintiffs claim that because defendants were generally aware that among their billions of users were ISIS adherents who violated their policies, and therefore defendants should have done more to enforce those policies, does not constitute aiding and abetting an act of international terrorism under the operative terms of the text, the constitutional principles articulated in Halberstam, or any recognized understanding of what it means to abet a criminal act.
The justices were heavily focused on the text of the Anti-Terrorism Act, which the Taamneh family is accusing Twitter of violating. The justices were particularly focused on these words from the law. Liability may be asserted as to any person who aids and abets by knowingly providing substantial assistance or who conspires with the person who committed such an act of international terrorism. Justice Sonia Sotomayor says what that exactly constitutes substantial assistance and what it means to knowingly provide that assistance are at the heart of this case. For more insight on the case in general, we spoke to attorney Gerard Filitti. He's done a lot of legal work fighting terrorism.
This is the ultimate question, whether Twitter recommended content that helped aid and support these terrorist organizations. And that was not really clearly answered today, and which I think is why the justices will be giving a lot more thought and discussing this in conference. And we can't really predict an outcome based on today's hearing.
Filitti says that it's very timely that the court is working on this case today. Over the past few years, there have been many cases involving the Anti-Terrorism Act, but different circuit courts have been sending out different opinions. Now, the Supreme Court can clarify what the exact standards are for suing someone over supporting terrorism. Twitter says it has taken action to remove pro-terrorism related content. Filitti says a key question is whether they do enough.
If Twitter can create algorithms that identify disinformation when it comes to COVID or alleged disinformation when it comes to COVID and can weed out, eliminate or ban former President Trump, then why can't it do the same, apply those same algorithms to prevent terrorist speech and the recruitment and furtherance of terrorist goals on the internet?
If the Supreme Court rules in favor of the Taamneh family, the lower court will determine how much Twitter must pay the family. The decision may broadly impact the economy, hitting banking, tech, and even the U.S. government. If the Supreme Court rules in favor of Twitter, the case will be dismissed. A decision on this case is expected before July.